Hello, hello, hello. Thank you so much for being here. Today I really want to talk about blending colors and how that relates to blending emotions. So, several years ago, I retook painting. It was something that I was always incredibly connected to. But for many reasons, I started to block myself. A lot of those reasons were related to school and how art was taught, but also it was deeply related to childhood abuse that made me feel very unsafe to truly express myself. So like the mix of not feeling safe to express myself plus art class being like science and being super formal and rigid just kind of turned me off from the whole thing. So so I realized when I started to retake painting in myself, I just started randomly painting and it was so liberating for me. And it's a huge part of what I share with the people that I work with. I feel like all of us have a space where expression comes more freely and more naturally to us. And I think that we should take advantage of those spaces and make space for those spaces. And that to me is love in action, because we can talk about self love all we want, but in the end, nothing that you want to create in this life has anything will directly come from the affirmations that you say to yourself. Of course, affirmations are powerful. Our words are incredibly powerful. But when you take those words and you create something tangible with them, instead of waiting for something to manifest, you're telling yourself, you're telling your body, you're telling the world that you don't have time to wait. That your love is so powerful that it needs to move. It needs to touch new spaces. It needs to touch new places. It can't just stay within this place of waiting. So yeah, me painting every day was really my love in action. Me really valuing my emotional expression and my mm, my emotional liberation. I began to see all of my emotions reflected back to me through my paintings. And in the beginning, sometimes this was a little bit scary because there were paintings that I would look at and I would think, I don't want this on my wall. I don't want to look at this, it's like not, it doesn't generate a feeling of peace or calm or anything. Because I had so many things within me that weren't expressed. And so I feel like painting has this really special power, and any form of art, it could be music, it could be dance, it could be anything that you like. Since it's really activating the right side of your brain, the creative side of your brain, and the part of you that's not so structured and logical, I think that it has this awesome power to show you things you're not normally aware of. And so something that painting showed to me several years ago was that this one time I was super angry. And so I felt fire, I was upset. I was realizing the corruption of the world, and it broke my heart, and I felt the superficial feeling. The first feeling that came was anger, and so I started to paint with this anger and to feel it and to release it. And I was using the color orange. And then, as I was painting with orange, I felt really strongly to paint with blue. And I realized that my anger was really just a superficial expression of a deep sadness that I felt about the world, about the state of the world, about the structures and the mindsets and the way that the world works in very unjust ways. And as I saw that reflected back to me, I felt peace. I felt peace with myself and with what I was feeling. And I felt free because I could see how my sadness generated this anger. And I could see how feeling my sadness allowed me to open to life on a much deeper level and to not just stay in that anger, but to allow that anger to grow, to transform, to push me into something deeper. And that's what I want to talk about. So if you relate to your emotions as frequencies instead of your concepts of what emotions are, there's a deep liberation that happens because the desire to conceptualize and understand everything starts to loosen up, and your capacity to truly rip your heart open and feel life more deeply grows, because you're able to move with this kind of fluidity. So if you think about how colors actually work, we first think about the primary colors: red, yellow, and blue. Red and yellow create orange. Yellow and blue create green. Blue and red create purple. And then when you mix those colors with white or black, you get different hues and tones of those basic colors. And so we have a huge spectrum that we can work with, and that spectrum widens when we blend. So blending energy is growing energy. It's creating new energy. And so instead of staying with red, yellow, and blue, we've expanded out into green, orange, and purple. And of course, indigo comes as well, because then you create a dark shade of blue using black and a bit of purple, and you start to mix these things, and then you create more and more and more, and then you create turquoise, and then you create teal, and then you create gold, and then you create brown, and then you just keep going and you keep going, and you create a bigger spectrum, and you widen your capacity to feel. I don't feel or observe that a lot of us truly know how to feel, or that we truly value the act of feeling as much as we value the act of thinking. And I find that to be incredibly dangerous, because if you value thinking over feeling, you're always going to be moved within concepts. But feeling has no concept, it goes beyond that. And a lot of times there are no words to truly express how exactly we feel. And that's the beautiful thing. And we don't need to have words to express exactly how we feel, because some things I feel like are better left unsaid. Sometimes words confine rather than liberate. It depends on the situation, of course, but if you have an experience with the word sadness or the word anger or the word joy, it's more difficult for you to truly access the essence of what that feeling is, because your concept gets in the way. And so that's why I really like to work with color, and that's why I feel like working with color in the same way that you would work with painting and mixing colors and allowing emotions to merge into one another, and not separating your sadness from your joy. Because if you think about it, oftentimes people associate joy with the sun, with yellow, or with orange. And if you think about sadness, people tend to associate that with blue. But what happens when you mix those colors together? What happens when you mix your sadness with your joy? You get green, which is loving acceptance and kindness. And so I feel like there's a magic in this. There's a magic in merging your emotions, allowing them to merge, because I feel like oftentimes when we have a habitual emotion, it's more likely to actually be a blend of a lot of different emotions. But since we're so accustomed to whatever story we've created about the one emotion, we focus mainly on that emotion. But when your spectrum and your openness to emote grows, it's having a palette. You have a palette in your hands, and you can mix those colors in a million different ways and create new variations of color and create works of art that no one has ever seen before, and that you yourself will be surprised by. And so that's where I feel art therapy and color therapy really blend so much, because the process of creating art is the process of experimentation and feeling and expressing. And colors are a huge mechanism through which we can find new levels of expression and feel things that we've never felt before. And so I invite you to observe the emotions that always come up to you, or your habitual responses to certain situations, or whatever it could be, certain triggers you might have, and start to maybe put a color to that and ask yourself, how would you feel if you could add white to that color, or if you could add black to that color, or if you could add red, blue, green, whatever you want to that color, and try to be playful with your emotions, instead of feeling this identification with that habitual emotion, this practice, this way of seeing your emotions is playful. It's open, it's free-flowing, it's so much more fluid than the rigid structure that our left side of the brain really likes to put on our emotions. And the part of us that, a lot of us have grown up in a culture where putting a smile on is shown as being strong. And being truly vulnerable and genuine is seen as being weak. And so there are so many cultural associations with how we emote, with how we relate to our emotions, and these colors and these energies that flow through us that want to be recognized as powerful energies rather than that emotion that you want to throw in the trash and forget about and never feel again. For example, I'm working with someone right now who has had anxiety for 14 years. And she told me, she's like, well, I've gone to so many different psychologists and psychiatrists and therapies over the years, but I can't seem to shake this anxiety. I want to get rid of it. I don't want to feel it anymore. And she looked at me a little bit like I was a loon when I said, well, your anxiety is not the thing that you want to get rid of. Your anxiety specifically is showing you that there is something much deeper that needs to be taken care of. And so the emotion is never the problem. It's the pattern. The emotion actually is something that we should be grateful to, because that emotion is opening the door for us to feel something that we don't want to feel, but it's opening the door for us to discover a part of ourselves that we've suppressed, or a pattern that we're not totally clear about. And so I told her, the anxiety is an invitation. It's not a punishment, and it never has been, and it never will be. And your desire to throw it in the trash comes from your mind who wants control. But our emotions are a way that our bodies can speak to us. And our emotions are so beautiful because when you are in a balanced state, and when you're really in a true communication with your body will tell you where to go. Your body will tell you, oh, I don't feel right here. Or, wow, I actually feel really good here. Or your sensation can lead you to places that your mind may never open to, and I think that's the beauty, because your sensation and your capacity to feel drawn to something or intrigued by something can open your mind. And your mind can also open your sense of sensation, They work together, there should be no conflict between your mind and your feelings and your body. And I feel like that conflict really starts to reside, I'm looking for a different word. It really starts to dissolve when your mind and your belief about your emotions changes. And when you see your emotions as energy and doorways into genuine understanding of yourself. Because you can continue with all the information in the world You can be an expert in psychology and not know yourself. And that's a big issue in our world. This desire for information and the quantity of information that is constantly multiplying feeds a kind of core belief that the information will save us, and that when you know enough, you'll liberate yourself. But sometimes we know so much that we don't know what to do with it because we've got no system of filtration. It's like there's a huge waterfall of water coming at us, and it's just too much. We don't know how to filter it into a tiny stream of water that is enough for us. Instead, we feel pummeled by information, and we keep pummeling ourselves even more because we're already so deep. And this desire for more and more and more information comes from a profound disconnection with the body and with nature, because information, of course, has the power to give you wings of a sort. But you can have wings and not know how to fly because you don't have that communication with your body. Because flying is a physical practice. You have to know, and you have to have a certain level of balance in order to be able to do that. And so you can have the wings, but do you have the balance, and do you have the capacity to make sure you can sustain yourself in the air? I think those are the reflections that a lot of us need to have in a world that's constantly growing in its quantity of information. Our communication with our bodies and with our emotions is more important than ever. And when you can allow your emotions to be fluid, like colored paints that can be blended, you will access a wider spectrum of sensation that can only grow, and that can make life so much richer and so much more fulfilling. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for listening. If you would like to delve deeper into color and art therapy, send me an email at unconditionalcolors@gmail.com. I've got loads of different offers that you can take part in. And yeah, thank you so much for being here. I hope that you got something out of this. If you've got any questions or reflections or ideas, please also send me to my email. I'd love to hear from you. And yeah, open your spectrum of feeling. When you feel more, you liberate more. Thank you.